Shalom and good morning. Today we're going to be reading Judges 17. And there was a man from the hill country of Ephraim whose name was Micah. And he said to his mother, "The 1,100 pieces of the silver that were taken from you, and on which you put a curse, even saying it in my ears. Look, the silver is with me. I took it." And his mother said, "Barak of Yahu'ah be my son." And he gave back the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. And his mother said, "I have truly set apart the silver from my hand to Yahu'ah for my son, to make a carved image and a molded image, and now I give it back to you." And he gave the silver back to his mother, and his mother took 200 pieces of silver and gave them to the silversmith, and he made it into a carved image and a molded image, and they were in the house of Micah. Now the man Micah had a house of mighty ones, and made a shoulder garment and house idols. And he ordained one of his sons who became a priest. In those days there was no sovereign in Yashrael. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And there was a young man from Bethlehem in Yehudah, of the clan of Yehudah, and he was a Levite, and he was sojourning there. And the man went out of the city of Bethlehem in Yehudah to sojourn wherever he could to find a place. And he came to the mountains of Ephraim, to the house of Micah, as he sojourned. And Micah said to him, "Where do you come from?" And he said to him, "I am a Levite from Bethlehem in Yehudah, and I am on my way to find a place to sojourn." And Micah said to him, "Dwell with me, and be a father and a priest to me. And I give you 10 pieces of silver per year, and a suit of garments in your food." And the Levite went in. So the Levite agreed to dwell with the man, and the young man became like one of his sons to him. Then Micah ordained the Levite, and the young man became his priest, and he was in the house of Micah. And Micah said, "Now I know that Yahuwah does good to me, since I have a Levite as priest." Chapter 18. In those days there was no sovereign in Yashrael, and in those days the tribe of Danites was seeking an inheritance for itself to dwell in. For until that day all their inheritance among the tribes of Yashrael had not yet fallen to them. And the children of Dan sent 5 men of their clan, brave men from Sahara and Eshtaol, to spy out the land and search it. And they said to them, "Go search the land." So they went to the mountains of Ephraim, to the house of Micah, and spent the night there. When they were near the house of Micah, they recognized the voice of a young Levite, and turned aside and said to him, "Who brought you here? What are you doing in this place, and what do you have here?" And he said to them, "Micah did such and such for me, and he hired me, and I have become his priest." And they said to him, "Please inquire of Yahu'ah, and we shall know whether the journey on which we are going is prosperous." And the priest said to them, "Go in peace, your journey on which you go is before Yahu'ah." Then the 5 men left and came to Laish, and saw the people who were in their midst, how they dwelt safely according to the ruling of the Sidonians, at rest and unsuspecting. And no one possessing authority in the land was reproaching for any matter. And they were far from Sidonians, and they had no word with anyone. And the spies came back to their brothers at Zorah and Eshtaol, and their brothers said to them, "What do you say?" And they said, Arise, and let us go up against them, for we have seen the land, and look, it is very good. And you sit still. Do not hesitate to go to enter in to possess the land. When you go, you are to come to an unsuspecting people, and the land is spacious. For Yahu'ah has given it into your hands, a place in which there is no lack of any matter which is on the earth. And 600 men of the clan of the Danites went from there, from Seor and Eshtaol, armed for battle. And they went up and encamped in Kiriath Yearim in Yehuda. Therefore they call that place Manana, Dan to this day. See, it is west of Kiriath Yearim. And they passed over from there to the mountains of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. And the 5 men who had gone to spy out the land of Laish answered and said to their brothers, Do you know that there are in these houses of shoulder garments, and house idols, and a carved image, and a molded image? And now do you know what to do? And they turned aside there, and came to the house of the young Luite man, the house of Micah, and greeted him. And the 600 men, armed for battle, who were of the children of Dan, stood by the entrance of the gate. And the 5 men who had gone to spy out the land went up, and entering there, they took the carved image and the shoulder garment and the house idols and the molded image, while the priest stood at the entrance of the gate with 600 men who were armed for battle. And these went into Micah's house and took the idol and the shoulder garment and the house idols and the molded image. Then the priest said to them, What are you doing? And they said to him, Be silent, and put your hand over your mouth, and come with us, and be a father and a priest to us. It is better for you to be a priest to the household of one man, or that you be a priest to a tribe and a clan in Yashrael. And the heart of the priest was glad. And he took the shoulder garment and the house idols and the carved image, and took his place among the people. And they turned and went, and put the little ones and the livestock and the valuables in front of them. They had gone some distance from the house of Micah, when the men who were in the houses near Micah's house gathered together and overtook the children of Dan, and called out to the children of Dan. So they turned around and said to Micah, What is the matter that you have gathered such a company? And he said, You have taken away my mighty ones which I made, and the priest, and you are leaving. Now what more do I have? What is this you say to me? What is the matter? And the children of Dan said to him, Do not let your voice be heard among us, lest men better of being fall upon you, and you lose your life with the lives of your household. And the children of Dan went their way. And when Micah saw that they were too strong for him, he turned and went back to his house. Then they took what Micah had made, and the priests who had belonged to him, and went to Laish, to a people who were at rest and unsuspecting, and struck them with the edge of the sword, and burned the city with fire. And there was no deliverer, because it was far from Sidon, and they had no word with anyone, and it was in the valley that belongs to Baeth Rehob. And they built the city and dwelt there. And they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born to Yashrael. But previously the name of the city was Laish. And the children of Dan set up for themselves the carved image, and Yehonathan, son of Gershom, son of Manasseh, and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan until that day the land was taken into exile. And they set up for themselves the carved image of Micah, which he had made all the days that the house of Yahu'ah was in Shiloh. Chapter 19. And it came to be in those days, when there was no sovereign in Yashrael, that there was a certain Luite sojourning on the further side of the mountains of Ephraim. And he took for himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Yehudah. And his concubine committed whoring against him and went away from him to her father's house at Bethlehem in Yehudah, and was there 4 new months of days. And her husband arose and went after her to speak to her heart and bring her back, having his servant and a couple of donkeys with him. And she brought him into her father's house. And the father of the young woman saw him, and he was glad to meet him. And his father-in-law, the young woman's father, took hold of him, and he dwelt with him 3 days. And they ate and drank and spent the nights there. And it came to be on the 4th day that they arose early in the morning, and he prepared to leave. But the young woman's father said to his son-in-law, refresh your heart with a piece of bread, and afterward go your way. So they sat down, the 2 of them ate and drank together. And the young woman's father said to the man, please agree to stay all night, and let your heart be glad. And when the man arose to go, his father-in-law urged him, so he spent the night there again. And he arose early in the morning on the 5th day to go. But the young woman's father said, please refresh your heart. So they delayed until afternoon, and both of them ate. And the man arose to go, and he and his concubine and his servants. But his father-in-law, the young woman's father, said to him, see, the day is now drawing toward evening. Please spend the night. See, the day is coming to an end. Stay here and let your heart be glad, and you shall rise early tomorrow for your journey, and you shall go to your tent. But the man would not stay that night, and he rose and left, and came to a place opposite Yubas, that is, Jerusalem. And with him were the 2 saddled donkeys, and his concubine with him. They were near Yubas, and the day was far spent. And the servant said to his master, come, please, and let us turn aside into the city of the Yeshubites, and spend the night in it. And his master said to him, let us not turn aside here into a city of foreigners, for who are not of the children of Yashrael, but we shall pass over to Geba. And he said to the servant, come, let us draw near to one of those places and spend the night in Geba or in Ramah. And they passed over and went their way. And the sun went down on them near Geba, which belongs to Benjamin. And they turned off to go in to spend the night in Geba. So he went in and sat down in the open square of the city. For no one would take them into his house to spend the night. But see, an old man came in from his work in the field at evening, who also was from the mountains of Ephraim, and was sojourning in Geba, whereas the men of the place were Benjamites. And when he lifted up his eyes, he saw the traveler in the open square of the city. And the old man said, where are you going, and where do you come from? And he said to him, we are passing over from Bethlehem in Yehudah to the other side of the mountains of Ephraim. I am from there, and I went to Bethlehem in Yehudah, and I am going to the house of Yahu'ah. But there is no one taking me into his house. Yet there is both straw and fodder for our donkeys, and bread and wine for myself, and for your female servant, and for the young man who is with your servant. There is no lack of any matter. And the old man said, peace be with you. However, let all your needs be on me. Only do not spend the night in the open square. And he brought him into the house, and gave fodder to the donkeys, and they washed their feet, and ate and drank. They were making their hearts glad, and see, men of the city, sons of Baalah, surrounded the house, beating on the door. And they spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, bring out the man who came to your house, so that we know him. But the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, No, my brothers, I beg you, do no evil, since this man has come into my house to do not do this folly. Look, here is my maiden daughter, and the man's concubine. Let me bring them out now, and humble them, and do with them what is good in your eyes, but do no such a foolish matter to this man. But the men would not listen to him, so the man took hold of his concubine and brought her out to them. And they knew her and rolled themselves on her all night until morning, and let her go when the day began to break. And as morning appeared, the woman came back and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was, till it was light. And her master rose up in the morning, and opened the doors of the house, and went out to go his way, and saw his concubine fallen at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. And he said to her, Rise up and let us go. But there was no answer. Then he took her on the donkey, and the man rose and went to his place. And it came into his house, and took a knife, then took hold of his concubine, and cut her up, limb by limb, into 12 pieces, and sent her throughout all the borders of Yashrael. And it came to be that all who saw it said, There has never been, and there has not been seen like this from the day that the children of Yashrael came up from the land of Mishraim until this day. Set your heart on it, take counsel, and speak up. Chapter 20. And all the children of Yashrael came out from Dan to Beersheba, from the land of Gilead, and the congregation assembled as one man before Yahu'ah at Mitzvah. And the leaders of all the people, all the tribes of Yashrael, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of Yahu'ah, 400,000 foot soldiers who drew the sword. And the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Yashrael had gone up to Mitzvah. And the children of Yashrael said, Speak up, how did this evil come about? And the man, the Levite, husband of the woman who was murdered, answered and said, My concubine and I went into Geba, which belongs to Benjamin, to spend the night. And the masters of Geba rose against me and surrounded the house at night because of me. They thought to kill me, but instead they humbled my concubine, and she died. Then I took my concubine and cut her into pieces, and sent her throughout all the land of the inheritance of Yashrael, because they committed wickedness and folly in Yashrael. Look, you are all children of Yashrael. Speak and give your counsel here. And all the men and all the people rose as one man, saying, Let none of us go to his tent, nor any of us turn back to his house. And now this is what we do to Geba. Go against it by lot. And we shall take 10 men out of every 100 throughout all the tribes of Yashrael, and 100 out of every 1,000, and 1,000 out of every 10,000, to make food for the people, to prepare for their going to Geba in Benjamin, for all the folly they did in Yashrael. And all the men of Yashrael were gathered against the city, knit together as one man. And the tribes of Yashrael sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, What is this evil that has come about among you? And now give us the men, the sons of Belial, who are in Geba, so that we put them to death and put away evil from Yashrael. But the children of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brothers, the children of Yashrael. So the children of Benjamin gathered together from their cities to Geba to go to battle with the children of Yashrael. And from their cities, at the time, the children of Benjamin registered 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Geba, who registered 700 chosen men. Among all this people, there were 700 chosen men who were left-handed. Each one could sling a stone at a hair's breadth and not miss. And besides Benjamin, the men of Yashrael registered 400,000 men who drew the sword. All of these were men of battle. And the children of Yashrael rose up and went up to Beth El to ask of Yahu'ah, and they said, "Who of us go up first to battle, and against the children of Benjamin?" And Yahu'ah said, "Yehudah first." And the children of Yashrael rose in the morning and encamped against Geba. And the men of Yashrael went out to battle against Benjamin, and the men of Yashrael put themselves in battle array to fight against them at Geba. And the children of Benjamin came out of Geba, and on that day cut down to the ground 22,000 men of Yashrael. But the battle of the men of Yashrael strengthened themselves, and again formed the battle line at the place where they had put themselves in array on the first day. And the children of Yashrael went up and wept before Yahu'ah until evening, and asked of Yahu'ah, saying, "Should I again draw near for battle against the children of my brother Benjamin?" And Yahu'ah said, "Go up against him." And the children of Yashrael drew near to the battle of Benjamin on the second day. And Benjamin went out against them from Geba on the second day, and cut down to the ground 18,000 more of the children of Yashrael. All these drew the sword. And all the children of Yashrael, even all the people, went up and came to Beth El and wept, and sat there before Yahu'ah and fasted that day until evening. And they offered ascending offerings and peace offerings before Yahu'ah. And the children of Yashrael asked of Yahu'ah. The ark of the covenant of Yahu'ah was there in those days. And Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, stood before it in those days, saying, "Should I yet again go out to battle against the children of my brother Benjamin, or should I cease?" And Yahu'ah said, "Go up, for tomorrow I give them into your hand." And Yashrael sent ambushers all around Geba. And the children of Yashrael went up against the children of Benjamin on the third day, and put themselves in battle array against Geba, as at the other times. And the children of Benjamin came out to meet the people drawn away from the city, and they began to strike some of the people, slain as at the other times, in the highways, of which one went to Beth El, and the other to Geba in the field, about 30 men of Yashrael. And the children of Benjamin said, "They are going to be smitten before us as previously." But the children of Yashrael said, "Let us flee and draw them away from the city to the highways." And all the men of Yashrael arose from their place and put themselves in battle array at Baal Tamar. And the ambush of the Yashrael broke forth from their position at Ma'ara Leba. And 10,000 chosen men from all Yashrael came against Geba, and the battle was fierce. But they did not know that calamity was close to them. And Yahu'ah smote Benjamin before Yashrael, and the children of Yashrael destroyed 25,100 men on that day in Benjamin. All these drew the sword. And the children of Benjamin saw that they were smitten, and the men of Yashrael had given ground to the Benjamites, because they trusted in the ambush that they had set against Geba. And the ambush hurried and came against Geba, and the ambush spread out and struck the entire city with the edge of the sword. And the appointed signal between the men of Yashrael and the ambush was that they would make a great cloud of smoke rise up from the city. Then the men of Yashrael would turn in battle, and Benjamin began to strike dead about 30 of the men of Yashrael. For they said, "They are indeed smitten before us, at the first battle." Then the cloud began to rise from the city in a column of smoke, and the Benjamites looked behind them, and saw the entire city going up in smoke to the Shemayim. And when the men of Yashrael turned back, the men of Benjamin were troubled, for they saw the calamity was close to them. And they turned their backs before the men of Yashrael toward the way of the wilderness. But the battle overtook them, while those who had come out of the cities were destroying them in their midst. They surrounded the Benjamites and pursued them, and with ease trampled them down as far as the front of Geba toward the east. And there fell of Benjamin 18,000 men. All of these were mighty men. And they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Ramon, and they cut down 5,000 of them on highways and followed them after them up to Gedam, and struck 2,000 of them. And all who fell of Benjamin that day were 25,000 men who drew the sword. All of these were mighty men, but 600 men turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Ramon, and they dwelt at the rock of Ramon for 4 new months. And the men of Yashrael turned back against the children of Benjamin and struck them with the edge of the sword from every city, men and beasts, all who were found, and they set fire to all the cities they came to. Chapter 21. And the men of Yashrael had sworn an oath at Mishpah, saying, not one of us shall give his daughter to Benjamin as a wife. So the people came to Beth El and sat there until evening before Yahu'ah, and lifted up their voices and wept bitterly, and said, O Yahu'ah, Yahu'ah of Yashrael, why has this come about in Yashrael, that today there should be one tribe missing in Yashrael? And it came to be on the morrow that the people rose early and built a slaughter place there, and brought ascending offerings and peace offerings. And the children of Yashrael said, who is there among all the tribes of Yashrael who did not come up with the assembly of Yahu'ah? For they had made a great oath concerning anyone who had not come up to Yahu'ah at Mishpah, saying, he shall certainly be put to death. And the children of Yashrael were sorry for Benjamin their brother, and said, one tribe is cut off from Yashrael today. What do we do for wives for those who remain, seeing we have sworn by Yahu'ah not to give them our daughters as wives? And they said, which one of the tribes of Yashrael did not come up to Mishpah to Yahu'ah? And see, no one had come to the camp from Yabesh Gilead to the assembly. For when the people called a roll, see, not one of these inhabitants of Yabesh Gilead was there. And the congregation sent out there 12,000 of their bravest men, and commanded them, saying, go, and you shall strike the inhabitants of Yabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, even the women and children. And this is what you do. Put under the bond every male and every woman who has known a man by lying with him. And they found among the inhabitants of Yabesh Gilead 400 young maidens who had not known a man, and they brought them to the camp of Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. Then all the congregation sent and spoke to the children of Benjamin who were at the rock of Ramon, and proclaimed peace to them. And Benjamin turned back at that time, and they gave them the women whom they had saved alive of the women of Yabesh Gilead. But even so, there were not enough of them. And the people were sorry for Benjamin, because Yahu'ah had made a breach in the tribes of Yashrael. And the elders of the congregation said, what do we do for wives for those who remain, since the women have been destroyed out of Benjamin? And they said, there is an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, but no tribe is to be destroyed from Yashrael. But we are unable to give them wives from our daughters, for the children of Yashrael have sworn an oath, saying, cursed be the one who gives a wife to Benjamin. So they said, see, there is a yearly festival of Yahu'ah in Shiloh, which is north of Beth El, on the east side of the highway that goes up from Beth El to Shechem, and south of Lebanon. And they commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, go lie in wait in the vineyards, and watch. And see, when the daughters of Shiloh come out to perform their dances, then you shall come out from the vineyards, and every man catch a wife for himself from the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. And it shall be, when their fathers or their brothers come to us to complain, that we shall say to them, Favor us with them, because we did not take a wife, any of them, in battle. Neither have you given them to them, making yourselves guilty of your oath. And the children of Benjamin did so, and took enough wives for their number from those who danced, whom they caught. Then they went and returned to their inheritance, and they rebuilt the cities and dwelt in them. And the children of Yashrael went from there at that time, each one to his tribe and clan, and they went from there, each one to his inheritance. In those days there was no sovereign in Yashrael. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes.